Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependummy Podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. Now, in your 20s, you're finding yourself exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in shit relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. Codependency is a way of being where we put the feelings, wants, and needs of others above our own in an unconscious attempt to meet our own feelings, wants, and needs. Sorry to break it to you, sis, but that is not sustainable. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. Happy pod birthday to you. Happy pod birthday to you. Happy pod birthday, Codependummy Podcast. Happy pod birthday to you. Hey girl, hey. It's your girl Marissa, licensed psychotherapist, podcaster, and your hostess mostest of the Codependummy Podcast. And today we celebrate year 2 of the show, the second year of the Codependummy Podcast. We are turning 2, technically January 25th. We are celebrating today. 2 years, everyone. Another year, another 52 episodes every single Monday. So we are celebrating. But do you know, my dear listener, how long 2 years is? I did not. I kind of did, but I didn't. So I Googled it, and 2 years equates to 24 months, 730 days, 17,520 hours, 1,051,200 minutes, and 63,072,000 seconds. So to celebrate all of that, the existence of the Codependummy Podcast, I am going to do 3 things. I'm going to, 1, reflect on this past year 2 of the podcast. Second, number 2, I'm going to set intentions for the 3rd year of the podcast. And third, I'm going to conclude with some final thoughts from year 2. I hope that by doing this, you all will see the power that can come from reflection, and also the power that can come from setting intentions for what is to come. We can't control anything, but we can at least set intentions which will influence our choices in how we move forward. Similar to a vision board. I don't think that because you put a picture of $1 million mansion, you're going to get $1 million mansion that year from your vision board. But maybe you make choices to set yourself up in a nice place. And that is a consequence to putting it on the vision board, seeing the vision board potentially on a regular basis, daily basis, hourly basis. And it just helps guide your choices. So how does that sound? Great? Great. Well, before we dive in, let's check in. Let's have a check up on you. All right. And let's start with 3 deep breaths. Okay. We're going to go in through our nose, out through our mouth, and just imagine we're massaging our lungs, our hearts, our mind. Okay. Inhaling through the nose, deep breath in. And out through the mouth. Let's do a second one. Deep inhale. And out. One more deep inhale in. And out. Shrug your shoulders a little bit. Rotate them back if you can. Rotate them forward. Move your neck around. Oh, that was 2 cracks. Oh, just rolling your neck. All right. After that little breath and some movement, I am curious, how are you feeling, baby girl? How's your 2023 starting out so far? Good, bad, meh, okay. How did you practice self-care this past weekend? Is there an area in your life where you are neglecting yourself, possibly physically, emotionally, financially, relationally, another way? What would it be like to prioritize tending to that part of yourself this week? What would that look like? I will share that in writing this episode and preparing, I'm feeling okay. Feeling all right. I have a medical procedure coming up this week that I'm preparing for and dealing with that and some health stuff. So overall, feeling okay. And I did, relating back to self-care, I did book a massage for after the procedure. So something to look forward to. I'm going to treat my body well. And I am also slowing down in general to make time for myself. Which, the past couple weeks, past couple months, it's just become less of an option and more of a mandate. I have to slow down, which is terrifying. And also, it's working. It is working in a sense. I'm saying no to more things. I'm not taking on too much. I am taking up space in conversations, taking up space in other people's lives. As a consequence, getting the emotional support that I need. And I sense it's helping. It's helping me. So I hope that you are experiencing, if you're needing to slow down, a similar sense of sensing the benefit of that. All right, so I think that's the check-in. Let's get to this reflection. Oh, this is the line that I had, which I'm reading incorrectly. Let's get this reflection and intention setting party started. Okay, let's have some tea. I'm gonna have some tea. If you have a drink or water, everyone, we're just taking a water break. So for reference, with the reflection and intention setting, I am using a worksheet from therapistaid.com. They are not a sponsor. Obviously, I don't have any sponsors. So you can either Google, if you want to refer to this, the Looking Back, Looking Forward worksheet, or you can find it on their webpage in the event that you want to do something like this on your own. Okay, so looking back, looking forward. I am taking their broad and general questions and formatting them to fit with the fact that this is a reflection for the podcast. Just so you know. So if you do it, yeah, you can personalize. I would encourage you to personalize the questions in order to get the most benefit for spending time in self-reflection. So in this worksheet, they do begin with a description on how when we do look back at a time in our lives, we tend to ignore what went well, what we are proud of, what we did that was best for ourselves. And we home in on the mistakes, the regrets, the remorse. And this exercise in looking back is an effort to help ourselves take notice of and acknowledge where we have grown, right? So we can put our hand behind our back and say, good job, Marissa. And the worksheet begins with a prompt to choose a time frame. So I will be reflecting on this past year 2 of the podcast. So from January 25th of 2022 to January 25th of 2023. And there are 5 broad questions to answer. Okay, so the first question to answer is list your accomplishments from the past year, even if they seem minor. This past year on the podcast, I posted an episode every single week. Every Monday for the past 52 weeks, a new episode was posted. And I don't know if anybody noticed. I'm sure you noticed, but I don't know if you noticed. A couple weeks ago, when I interviewed Dr. Charlene Lawrence, I had uploaded the podcast and I forgot to upload the audio to it. And so it premiered on YouTube and it did not premiere on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and everywhere else you find your podcasts. And I think it was like mid-afternoon on Monday. I was like, what the heck? And yeah, I uploaded it right then. But I uploaded it. I think I was not paying attention the day prior when I did post it. And so I apologize for that. But that is an accomplishment this past year. I have posted an episode every single week. And just to acknowledge the accomplishment within that. So there were 14 solo casts. 4 listeners came on to go through. Molly came on to talk about the confiding codependummy, the collection of journaling prompts that I have. And then we had 3 listeners come on for the codependummy dilemma. Thanks to you all. And then 33 or 34 guest interviews this past year. And another accomplishment, I updated the website, so all the episodes are there. And now Google actually thinks I'm a musical artist. When you Google me, that's what I come up as, I think, as a consequence to all these podcast episodes. And I also, this past year, I joined a Toastmaster meeting to improve my speaking skills, and just to acknowledge an accomplishment that some weeks I have shared about this, but I really did dread either an interview that I was really nervous about, or writing a solo cast on a topic I felt insecure about presenting. And despite the dread and anxiety, it got done. So those are the accomplishments from year 2. Second question, describe a great interview. Customizing the question to that. What made this interview special? And I looked back at all the episodes, and my favorite, even though so many of them were so good and so fun, but I loved sitting with Kelly Younglove. I loved it. Our time together, I resonated so much with what she had to share about codependency in her friendship. She came on to talk about boundaries. She talks about different types of boundaries, and also how to critically think about boundaries as a recovering codependent, as a codependummy. So it's interviews like with Kelly that really just invigorate me and excite me. And I loved sitting with her, and I love reflecting back to sitting with her. And I have thoughts after interviews like that, like, if this is what it means to have a podcast, I will do this for the rest of my life, because they're just open and vulnerable and educational, empowering, and motivating. So yeah, that was my favorite interview this past year. And to add, actually, I invited Kelly to come on before the podcast existed. I think I found her somewhere online when I was trying to get some initial guests booked, and for whatever reason didn't work out. And I don't even know if I had a good pitch for what the podcast was about. And so thankfully we did stay in touch, and I'm so glad we did, and I'm so glad she came on. So I don't know, just to share that booking guests is not always easy. I don't know who's coming on and what their vibe will be all the time. And sometimes people do say no or not now. And I continue to follow up with them. And with Kelly, that effort was totally worth it. So I look forward to having her on again in year 3. All right, third question, in looking back, how have I grown, or what lessons did I learn in year 2 of the podcast? A couple points. 2022 as a year was rough at times for me emotionally. I started to work with a new therapist, which has been amazing and also so fucking painful at times. Just we're doing a lot of like deep work, talking about some tough things. I'm having to process and get in touch with big emotions, and it's just like, ugh. So, and of course I want to, well, part of me wants to and part of me doesn't, but the part of me that wants to is steering the ship, thankfully. But just some hard times, some lows emotionally. I also started to experience some symptoms for like just some health conditions that I'm currently dealing with. Thankfully, like it's all been benign, but I'm still going through this process. And so navigating that, I've also experienced insecurity in my work, in my practice, and I've started to make a lot of changes in an effort to heal from areas in my life where my codependency continues to rule. So, amazing year and also rough emotionally at times. And I think as a consequence to going through that and finishing the year feeling stronger emotionally, even though I'm dealing with these physical symptoms, I feel like my body is in a really good place. And I have learned as a consequence to going through that there's a saying, I think, in recovery circles. It's almost like a mantra, but it goes, I'm in the exact right place at the exact right time, doing the exact right thing, exactly right. Which I don't believe all the time, but I'm learning how to trust that. I made the choice to start with that new therapist. I made changes in my practice that contributed to the insecurity and got through it. And I'm walking through this health stuff and doing what I can to slow down and take care of myself in the process. So I'm learning to trust that I'm in the exact right place at the exact right time, doing the exact right thing, exactly right. Some other ways I've grown, it just got reinforced, the fact that I can do this. I can do this podcast. I can commit to being here weekly, and sometimes episodes are imperfect or guests cancel, and I'm like, fuck, I tried a fucking solo cast this week. God fucking damn it. I don't know what the fuck I want to talk about. Fuck. But imperfectly, we have had 52 episodes in 52 weeks. So I can do this. I learned that again. I also think I've grown with some lessons from the podcast. I really appreciated what Ofra Obejas shared about the moral injury that comes with acting out of alignment with our values. Has really, really stuck with me, and really trying to act within my values, even becoming more clear about what my values are, and using that as a guidepost on which direction I should go. And then lastly, I have grown, another lesson learned, which I've known before. I think a lot of us have heard it before, but how important it is to pay attention to our bodies. I know Randy came on, the therapist, and she's also a massage therapist. Tamiko talked about it when we discussed trauma. There was a very recent episode with Megan. She talked about becoming more aware of the body. And that really has been a central theme with a lot of the guests. And so I have really learned to ground myself, get centered, care for, listen to my body. All right, fourth big question in this, looking back, what am I grateful for from this time frame? Try to list 3 examples. First, I'm grateful for my husband, right? Or my spouse, my partner. He is my editor for this podcast, thanks to his computer skills. And I am just so grateful to be able to record this and give it to him. And he has been very obliging the past 2 years in helping me with the podcast. Second, I hesitated to put this down, but I am grateful for my consistency and discipline and stick-to-itness. I am grateful that despite the dread and anxiety and self-consciousness that comes from podcasting, I keep posting and uploading and writing and recording and doing what I can, coming up with topics, conducting a little research in the realm of psychology and psychotherapy to create content and also find guests and prep interviews to create content that I hope is and has been and will be meaningful for you. And I'm also grateful for all of you. I love hearing from listeners. I love hearing from my family. I think I told you guys, but at Thanksgiving, my aunt was like, I don't know, she just made like a really sweet remark. She's like, I've learned so much, or something like that. And someone else, another relative, texted me. Obviously, this is all biased because I just talked about 2 relatives, but she just sent me like a random text to thank me for the show. And I had no idea she was listening. So I'm just sincerely appreciative of, when I do hear from you guys. You don't have to you don't flood my email. You don't have to flood my email, but just know I am grateful that you guys are out there, and I'm happy to hear at times when it's helping. And I'm going to be doing this. I said I'd do this for 5 years, so we're not even halfway through. And I don't know, who knows if I'll, but I said 5 years, so I'm going to be here 5 years. Maybe I'll do it longer. I have tried, and I think sometimes I forget. And so this is, again, why reflection like this is so helpful. But I'm remembering that I do try to think about what did I need to hear at 20? What did I need to hear at 22, 24? Now I'm just doing even numbers, but 26 and 28. What did I need to hear that potentially could have spared me from a lot of emotional pain, from inappropriate interactions with other people, especially men, you know, hurtful relationships, unreciprocating interactions, toxic work environments. Sometimes these episodes really are a covert love letter to all my girls, to all you girls. And I am grateful that you're here and that you're listening, and how much these interviews and solo casts mean to you. I do. I really, really appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you. All right. Last question, the reflection piece. Oh, well, I don't know if I finished with that, but yeah, I do try it. Like, this is a love letter, and it is like, what did I need to hear? And this podcast, yeah, I think that's a good place to start from sometimes. Like, what did I need to know that I didn't at 22? And then creating some content related to that. And yeah, I think it's a good reminder for me sometimes when I'm like, I don't know what to write about. It's like, well, what did you need to hear about like 10 years ago? That's a good start. All right, last question in the reflection, then we'll move forward to the intention setting and then final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up. So, what was a challenge that you overcame this past year? Year 2 of the podcast. This is repetitive, but sometimes I really didn't want to record, and I would have a thought like, make someone else do it. Like, someone else write the podcast, someone else record it. I don't want to do it today. My life is so hard. And I totally procrastinated today, and now I'm here getting it done. But I think the challenge has been I could say like me. I overcame me, myself. But just, the self-doubt, the self-consciousness, the perfectionism, the people pleaser, I just want to stay on a pedestal and for you to think I'm perfect and polished, and I don't know that word, like, is it like coiffed, like my hair? I don't even know if I'm using that correctly, but I just really overcoming my fear of being perceived negatively. I think that's such a core fear of mine. And so overall, I think I have overcome that challenge. I continue to overcome it this year on the podcast. All right, so looking back is complete. Now we are going to look forward. This is the intention setting piece. And on this worksheet that I'm modeling this from, they begin with this description that looking forward and imagining our best possible self, or for me, like the best possible podcast, can help improve optimism, motivation, hope, etc. And so in this piece, we're going to imagine an ideal future for the podcast. And we begin by choosing a time frame. So year 3 of the podcast. So from January 25th of 2023 to January 25th of 2024. And there are 5 questions. So the first question, what would you like to achieve this third year on the podcast? I would like to upload 52 more episodes, at least 12 solo casts, and 40 guest interviews. I'd also like to create more of a community for the podcast. I am working on putting together something like a monthly meeting and calling it the Codependummy Collective. And it will be free. It will be on Zoom. And I just imagine getting together with you all once a month. I don't know. I don't know how many of you will come, but once a month, and we can do Q&A on a recent episode. We could maybe do some coaching or brainstorming on a certain dilemma that maybe a couple people are facing at the time. I could lead us in a guided meditation. The sky is the limit. The world is our oyster. And so once all my health stuff gets resolved, I have it as a New Year's resolution to create more of a community for the podcast. So I will keep you updated on that. Okay. Second question in this intention setting. What am I looking forward to this upcoming year? I put two things. So I am looking forward to reframing the solo casts I'm going to say it again. I'm going to reframe the solo cast from being a potential threat to a creative opportunity. I'm just going to repeat myself, but I get self-conscious and I worry I sound stupid. I really worry I sound stupid, self-centered, like I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I want to change my approach when I sit down to write a solo cast as an opportunity to channel my creativity through writing. I liked writing in school. I sometimes write poetry, but rarely do it. And so, maybe bringing poems here, coming up with certain topics to talk about. But when I do sit down to write a solo cast, I really just hope that I'm able to, when it's time, warm up a cup of tea, because I always need tea, put on some good music, stretch my arms like I'm a writer on my computer, put my cell phone on sleep so no one can interrupt me, set my timer for an hour, and enjoy creatively sharing about an aspect of codependency from my life through composing an episode. And just really trying to get in touch with the fact that doing this is going to help you gain more awareness about codependency in your life. Obviously, it's going to help me gain more awareness. And I look forward to having more ease and fun when it comes to the solo casts. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to during this time frame. And a second thing I'm looking forward to is having some of the previous guests who I loved back on the show. It's time. Like Corey Rosenthal, she needs to come back. I don't know if Tiffany McLean's too busy, but if Tiffany can come back, I'd love to get Tiffany, Nick Bogner. Yeah, some of the OGs of the Codependummy Podcast need to come back. All right, third question in this intention setting. What relationships would you like to strengthen this upcoming year? So first, my relationship with myself, and as the writer of solo casts, also as an interviewer, I think I've gotten better at, when I am sitting with a guest, being conscious of my breath, staying centered, feeling my feet on the floor, my butt in the chair. And if I prepared questions or I thought we were going to talk about certain topics and we start to go somewhere else, either being able to guide the conversation back or go with that, and just improving my relationship, with myself in different ways, but also as an interviewer. And like I said, with the Codependummy Collective, I do want to strengthen my relationship with all the listeners. So more opportunities to connect with you. Fourth question in the setting intentions piece: what can you do to help others this upcoming year? I can provide more community. I can invite cool guests on to talk about different aspects of codependency. And I can encourage you, my dear listener, to keep walking on your healing journey. I have gotten better with my codependency, and balancing my needs and the needs of others, self-adoption rather than self-abandonment, practicing tenderness and compassion, cultivating interdependent relationships. And I believe that you can too. So continuing to help you with encouragement. And the last question in the setting intentions piece: ideally, how will your life be different at the end of this time frame? Give specifics. So I put 4. I hope to strengthen a few new interdependent friendships in my own life that I have made recently. I also want to meet some more people, thanks to going to meetups and book clubs and other social gatherings. I think I've said this before. I keep repeating myself, but there's that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And I'm like, it just takes a village to be. And as a consequence, I need a village all the time. So my life will be different thanks to strengthening my relationships with my current village members and also adding people to my village. My life will also be different. I sense my relationship with myself will be better. I want to focus on one thing. I don't know how healthy or unhealthy this is, but it is working for me right now, but really trying to fulfill my roles, right? So my role as a podcaster, my role as a therapist, my role as a partner, as a sister, as an aunt. How am I fulfilling my roles as best as I can? And also I sense one of my roles is just a caring seeker on my path towards healing. So how am I doing with that role as well? Taking care of myself. My life will be different at the end of this because there will be 163 episodes total of the podcast. And a year from now, I sense my life will be slower and more intentional. quality over quantity when it comes to how I spend my days, my weeks, my months, my year. I have a lot going on. And so being intentional with that and also slowing down. I really, really hope a year from now, it's like, oh wow, Marissa's really slowed down in a good way. And that is the end of the looking back, looking forward, reflection, and intention setting activity. Couple more thoughts. 8 things to mention, 8 things to highlight, 8 things to conclude with. So first, reflecting on 2 years of the podcast, I am very aware of how this podcast helps me be accountable. I know I did an episode on I don't want to be here, but I'm here. And that was thanks to being in spaces earlier in 2022 and thinking like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I have no interest in being here. What the fuck am I doing here? Marissa, you can't be here. You can't be here and have a podcast about healing from codependency. You fucking codependummy. Get out of here. So it keeps me accountable. So thank you for that. 2, I will congratulate myself. The first year of the podcast, I probably interviewed, I lost count. I think I said it last year on the reflection episode for year 1, but I think I interviewed like 8 or 9 people that I never aired their episode in year 1. And every single one of those interviews, I was doubtful the whole time. And yet I feigned interest for an entire episode and just never aired the episode because I can't hurt their feelings or say, I don't think this is going to resonate with the listener, so I'm going to stop the interview now. And I really appreciate you taking time to meet with me. I couldn't do that. And this year I didn't have to do that, thankfully, but I did. There was one interview and I gave them the whole hour. And so that's progress. And so that's another takeaway. 2, I also did meet with a potential guest and the vibe was way off. And I left that coffee and I was like, oh man, this is bad. And I was about to send them the link to book an interview. And I just said, things have changed and I forget my language. It was like, I sense it's best that we not have you on. And thank you for meeting with me. And I was terrified to do that. But overall, I am so glad that I did. 4th, I just want to acknowledge some of these guests this past year. They're so smart and wise and educated and fancy and intellectual and impressive. And I'm like sitting with them. I'm like, oh my God, they're really good at what they do. And I'm a fucking codependummy over here struggling to send an email to reschedule something because I'm going to inconvenience people. So just to say, it's pretty cool that I've created a space where I get to sit with and interview them. And the self-doubt does come up. And yet I'm so glad I get to meet with them. I have learned so much. And I think this is just a note to remind myself, like you are capable. Some of these guests have been very impressive and they want to come back. And that's a compliment to, I don't know, something is working. So grateful for that. Number 5, I hope to add more humor and fun for this year. I know I really liked recording the I hope this message finds you well, and the traits of a codependummy email, which it's painful how much time it takes me to write an email sometimes. And also that was fun. And so trying to have some lighter conversations, because codependency is really painful and dreadful and horrible and horrifying and depressing and debilitating and devastating and disillusioning and hopelessness provoking. So having some, is it brevity? Light and brevity is something I hope to cultivate this year. 3 more things. Okay, everybody. So I want to incorporate more thoughts on feminist theory and women's position in society. I've been learning more and more about that and how it contributes to traits that are similar to or compound or enable codependency. So yeah, more critical thought on the culture and how we really are set up, and it's really not our fault, and we're just doing our best, and the self-judgment and self-hate and self-condemnation isn't called for. Last 2 thoughts. I've noticed I've cleaned up my mouth a little bit. I think I cussed way more at the beginning of the podcast, and now I know there's entire interviews where I don't. I don't plan to stop cussing, but maybe I'm less, I don't know, angry. I don't know. I still cuss, but I definitely have noticed that, and I wonder if you have too. And lastly, last year, I did set an intention for the podcast, which was tenderness. And tenderness meant or means sensitivity to pain, being gentle, being soft. And I hope I helped you cultivate tenderness toward yourself and others. And I know I have been able to incorporate more of that. And when I thought about what I wanted the theme to be, the intention for year 3 of the podcast, the word that came to mind was community. Community will be the intention of year 3 of the Codependummy Podcast, which it's ironic, but the way we truly heal from our codependency is by cultivating interdependent relationships with other people. In that process, we also will create a healthy relationship with ourselves, but that healthy relationship with ourselves that in and of itself is dependent on having people around us who reflect back kindness, compassion, warmth, empathy, love, understanding. And so community will be something I intend to focus on in interviews and in solo casts, right? Potentially about making friends, dating, finding good mentors, all these things that I have done on my healing journey that I hope to share with you. And community is key. So that's it. This is episode 111. 2 years of the Codependummy Podcast. Thank you for being here. We are growing. Thank you for being part of the growth. Keep sharing the podcast. If you haven't left a review, you can leave one on Apple Podcasts. You can leave one on Spotify. You can leave one on both, which would be amazing. We spent some time today reflecting, setting intentions, and hearing 8 takeaways to celebrate Codependummy's 2nd birthday. So thank you for being here. I think I already said that, but I love you. And now I want you to go out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. I will see you next week.
Hey girl, it's Marissa again. I'm not like a regular podcaster, I'm a cool podcaster, right? Thank you for listening and staying till the end. You can find me on Instagram at Therapy with Marissa. Email me, marissa@codependummy.com. Check out codependummy.com for more information on the show. And baby girl, a subscribe, rating, and review would be much appreciated. Till next time, I want you to remember, if you are feeling unseen, I see you. If you are feeling unheard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. I want you to go out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. And now, the disclaimer. Girl, this is not therapy and I am not your therapist. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, publisher, or guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional service. If you want or need a professional, please